Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Kneon. I am here with Geeky Sparkles.
Hello.
And it's another day in 2025. We're going to talk about what's going on with Jimmy Kimmel. Now, we did a video last night. We didn't have all the information. Now we've got more information on him being canceled. And also another broadcast group, Sinclair, has joined in and said, yeah, we weren't going to carry him either. And they're going a step further. They want an apology.
And they want a donation, a financial donation to Kirk's family and to, his organization, Turning Point USA.
Yeah, so it's escalating very, very quickly. And I told people, I said, I don't think you realize fully how hard right things are going to go because it wasn't just the killing of Charlie Kirk. It was the reaction to Charlie Kirk that really opened a lot of people's eyes. I mean, I'm hearing stories that, like, all these people are quitting the Democrat Party. A lot of people are getting fired. It's really crazy.
I think it was, what happened to him too, because people were like, this is wrong. And then, like you said, people reacted to it and started celebrating. It's like, how far have we moved from center? How far have we moved from, thinking things are okay? This is just awful. And most people that, still have decency and humanity think it's not okay to mock it.
I think for me, the eye-opening part of it, the most disgusting part of it was you can write off just kind of a lone gunman, which isn't the case. It turns out, there were several accomplices, but you can write off like a small group of people deciding to kill someone, but you can't write off like normal left-wingers, taking delight in it on Facebook, on TikTok,
there is no normal.
Well, like people, okay, let me put it to you this way.
If you get to any normal extreme viewpoint, it's nothing normal about an extreme.
People I thought were normal. People that I thought had a sense of decency and decorum, and even if they vehemently disagreed with Charlie Kirk and his positions, I never expected some of the people that were celebrating to celebrate. I actually expected more empathy. I'm kind of looking at Jamie Lee Curtis, where she's like, she's got a trans kid, and she's like, I disagree with Charlie Kirk on just about everything, but nobody should be killed in front of their family like that.
That's just that nobody should be killed. And that's where I'm at. It's like and this is, I think, where most of the normal people are at, is just that, you don't have to like someone, you don't have to like their opinions, but you understand that they, in America, have the right to say them. But again, freedom of speech is not freedom for consequences, they say.
Yeah.
But you have the right to say it. But you might get punished for it. It's sadly, it is what it is. I mean, ask you to cry, know how that goes. But you shouldn't be out celebrating and demanding more violence. And here's another person. Here's a list. That kind of behavior is never acceptable. And someone had said this on Twitter, and I've been saying on videos the whole time. It's like these people that say that they hate fascists are acting an awful lot like fascists. And that's what gets me. It's just the double standard, the hypocrisy is just insane to me.
Yeah. So we're gonna talk about this a little bit more and talk about what Kimmel actually said, what the motivator in him getting gone was. Here's a hint. It involves the green stuff. I believe it's almost all about the green
gonorrhea?
Stuff. Yeah. Verbal gonorrhea. So we're going to talk about this. Before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. Go out to news.clownfishtv.com. Join our mailing list. You will get notified when we upload new videos. Hopefully within 24 hours. It depends on when we get to it. But you will at least get notified because we know YouTube is not doing a real good job with that. So, Sinclair is joining in on this. Nexstar was the first to issue a statement saying they're not going to carry Jimmy Kimmel. They were going to run something else. People said it was like Family Feud or something. They were going to
No, Sinclair is going to run a Charlie Kirk tribute special.
Oh my gosh.
That's what you read their statement. That's what they're going to run.
Okay. Yeah. I haven't read the whole statement yet. Well, so Sinclair, I know is a more conservative network.
Yeah. Now here's the thing. Why do I think that Jimmy Kimmel basically is the show's getting shut down? I think it's because a couple things. I think one, it's because ABC is terrified of Trump suing them again. I think him bringing up Donald Trump's clip and then saying like he doesn't even care because of here's how much he cares, and playing that clip. I think it was a big catalyst because I'm sure they were told, hey, tone it down there because we don't want to get sued. So I'm sure there's fear of lawsuit. I am sure the station's all saying, hey, we're not going to run this. We're not going to air him. Yeah. Well, then why make the shows?
Yeah, that's okay. So yeah, because actually what they think was the motivator, and then he kind of doubled down with the Donald Trump clip, was he basically repeated the MSNBC or MS Now or whatever talking point that the shooter was definitely MAGA. And
which is not the case.
Which turns out it's not the case. And instead of saying, hey, we don't know.
Even then, it was people knew it wasn't the case because they had too much evidence to the contrary.
It reminded me of Austin Powers with the Swedish penis pump, where it's like, oh, that's not mine, baby. Well, here it is with your face on the book and your name engraved on it and the whole. And it was kind of like that. Like the more it came out, people are like, oh, look, yeah. So he came from a Republican family, totally Republican guy. It's just a Republican gun nut. Here we go. That's, he's yours. And then it came out like, oh, no, the guy was radicalized by the left.
See, here's the problem, too. And this is what keeps happening, is this mentality that if I just label somebody, because anything I don't like is this, and I just label them what I think it is and what they think they are, and I'll just, to dismiss them. And what happens is if people are incorrectly, because they get in their head that if I don't agree with that action, or if it's too extreme, it might make us look bad. They're the other side. And, maybe there's nuance, guys. Maybe everything's not just black and white. Maybe there's an awful lot of gray, that we've been saying this for years, that just because somebody, does something doesn't mean they're automatically that. Like, for example, we're constantly called MAGA. Like, oh my God, they're MAGA. Even when we've said repeatedly, like, you're Neon's libertarian, I'm independent. Yes, we lean more right now than we used to. We used to definitely lean left, but the same people that where we are at are all considered right now. And it's not because we changed. It was because the everything kept sliding that way, because anything like right of far left is considered alt-right.
Isn't that weird?
I know, but it's true. So there's like this little tiny sliver that's considered left, and everything else is considered alt-right, because unless you agree with every talking point, they automatically label you these things. And that's the problem. It's like that goes back to that political pickling and the polarization. I blame fully the media and Hollywood and all of this shit. And it's like, it's all come to a head, and it's kind of like, what goes around comes around in karma, because you guys created this and now it's coming for you. But this whole idea that, people just think they can just make assumptions about everybody and then say it as if it's fact is a big part of the problem. And that's what he did. He basically got on there and repeated that, even though it's been disproven before he said it.
Yeah.
That did not go well, but that, you could probably dismiss with an apology. I wouldn't say dismiss, but, normally an apology would have been enough. Okay, I have to make a correction. That's what they usually do. We have to issue a correction. I think in his case, it was because they're afraid of getting sued by Trump. Yeah. And and I think they're afraid, and these other carriers decided they don't want to, I'm washing my hands of it. I don't want to deal with it. It's just easier to get rid of it completely than have to deal with it.
Well, yeah, that's that. So that really, at the end of it, that is the motivation. Because look, these corporations, they're not all big hearted, whatever. It's like Disney's not going to do shit unless it hits them in the wall, which we'll talk about that. Now we've got the left. The left is going to boycott Disney.
I know.
And 2 months ago, you were
boycott Disney. You're MAGA.
Yeah, remember we spent how many years? We had people calling us MAGA, alt-right, Nazi, whatever, because we weren't into. We still bought Disney stuff. But we were critical of Disney, and that made you an alt-right chud. Now it's the moral thing to do to boycott Disney.
Well,
this is
the funny
ridiculous.
thing is, if the right goes and backs Disney again, which I don't know if they're going to, because they know Disney ultimately is Disney. But say that everybody did, it would be hilarious to me if Disney just climbed and climbed and climbed and climbed and climbed, and it just would prove how much more the middle people are on, the side of rational behavior than there are on the side of extremism. You know what I'm saying? But I don't know if anybody's that stupid to do that either, because they still know Disney is Disney. So
yeah, well, here they're saying so. Nexstar is in the middle of a takeover. They want to take over Tegna, which is another big broadcaster. So the fact that they're not willing to carry Kimmel and Sinclair is not willing to carry Kimmel. What is the point of Kimmel? Because because he's on broadcast TV. So Disney's going to look at this, like you said, so it's threefold. It's Disney doesn't want to get sued again. They already got sued over ABC. They probably are keeping the gals at The View on a very tight leash. And, they probably had a conversation with Jimmy Kimmel's people. And they probably told him, like, you're going to have to be really careful what you say. And then he probably ran ahead with it. And then you had a whole bunch of stations refusing to carry it. And they're like, you know what? That's it. It would not surprise me. I don't know the terms of his contract, but
we
it
don't
would
know
not.
This. We're just
we don't know.
guesses here.
Speculation. This is ridiculous. You have to speculation on my part. It would not surprise me if they just like bottom out, ended the show or whatever, because they're like, we can't trust you not to say stupid shit, or we're gonna have to do like Paramount's doing, CBS is doing, where they have somebody to oversee the content before it goes out. Like we're gonna have to put somebody in charge of all the ABC news and commentary content to make sure that before it goes out the door, it's not going to get us sued.
Well, you can't do it live anymore, basically, because everything has
you can't
to
do
be,
it live.
you know, scanned and censored. We also know that the numbers on late night shows are down significantly. Yeah. Colbert was the biggest one. They got rid of him because these corporations, they are not worth it. They are not bringing enough to make it worth the hassle. And I think that's what's going on. They're probably just looking for a reason.
Yeah.
And you gave him one. Then you have Jimmy Kimmel previously bragging he has got Italian citizenship and he can just flee America. And why would somebody who's successfully anchored and know their job is secure and they're not going anywhere do that? You know what I'm saying? He did it because, and he's making a big deal of it. He's basically had one foot at the door anyway. Why?
Yeah. I think they know the end is near. I mean, look, the economy doesn't support these late night hosts. And, he knew in this case, I cannot believe somebody didn't pull him aside and say, hey, dude, just lay off the Charlie Kirk stuff. But that your whole audience is, left-wing politics. So, of course, he's going to talk about it.
Now, to be honest, I mean, I think what he said about something that was provably false was probably not smart to say. And normally they would have, issued a retraction. Do I think that he should be fired for this? I don't think he should be fired for this any more than Gina Carano should have been fired for some of the things she said, which honestly were much milder, if we're being fair. If you advocate free speech, not freedom of consequence, I think that there should have been, definitely a punishment involved. But if you advocate for free speech, then you can't be like, fire this person, fire that person. They don't agree with me. I think what he said was shit. But do I think that it was crossing a line enough to be, this? No, because at the end of the day, I don't think that's why. I think it's because of money. I think it's because they don't want the headache. I think it's because everybody's so polarized that it's coming to a head that it's easier to, don't care who you are. I don't care how big you think you are. It's coming to a place where it's easier to just shut you up than deal with the consequences.
Yeah, and we've seen the consequences over the last, decade that, the viewership numbers have dropped off. We've seen, Disney take a hit at the box office because they've gone, further and further left and alienated middle America. I think, in this case, it's not that he's being fired because Disney didn't just flat out fire him. It's that the advertising money is not there.
They're canceling him because basically, money and fear of,
another
damages and lawsuits and everything else. And I think at the end of the day, no one is above at this point in time. You're just your status that quote unquote isn't going to keep you out of it.
Yeah, and in the case of Gina Carano, that's a little bit different because the general public wasn't calling for her head. There were some people on terminally online, people on Twitter, advertisers or
and it makes it worse.
Yeah, people weren't saying, "Oh, we're going to stop making Cara Dune action figures." And then, like, most people weren't even aware of the stuff she was saying online. And then Lucasfilm felt like they had to put out a public statement denouncing her when nobody was really even talking about outside of Twitter. So that's a little bit different. This is basically the people that keep the show on the air turning off the money, turning off the views.
What's going on is, I think in this case, I think it's more to do with that because I think if you think what happened to Gina Carano and you were out there saying that she should be fired and you were one of those people and now you're pissed about Jimmy Kimmel, you're the problem. Yeah. Because it's like you give this double standard and it's bullshit. And I think, and we've said this the entire time, if you're going to have guidelines that can get somebody fired or removed or whatever, then you have to enforce them evenly across the board. And they did it with Gina Carano and Disney settled, they caved. Jimmy Kimmel, I don't know if he's going to go sue or not, but I'm just like, if you think it's okay to fire Gina Carano, but it's not okay to fire Jimmy Kimmel. The WGA is out there having a hissy fit because they fired Jimmy Kimmel. They said nothing.
Yeah.
When, they fired other people like Roseanne Barr or Gina Carano, or they tried to cancel like Tim Allen, and he came out okay. But they tried this several times with people that they thought were on the other side,
Yeah.
And that's what I have a problem with. I have a huge problem with this.
I am of two minds on this thing, because part of me, and I talked about a little bit this morning, we did a live stream, and I talked about, Reddit and Twitch and all that. Part of me is like, well, good. There's some crazy ass people on Reddit and Twitch and Discord. Good if they get gone, good if they get whatever. But then you think about it more, and it's like, we could swing the pendulum too far, and this could actually be a blow for free speech. Because just hypothetically speaking, what happens if the government clamps down on what can and cannot be broadcast? Just because this regime is in place doesn't mean a future regime isn't going to come in later and be like, you know what, we're going to have to, everything that goes out in the air, everything that goes out in the internet, we have to run it through.
But see, isn't that scary, the fact that you're referring to this as each regime? Doesn't that sound like a little, dystopian to you? Because it's not like in America, here's where our rules are and we're applying them evenly. It's just like, depending on the regime, that sounds a lot like, things you hear about, in other countries, and when they have constant wars and
everything that has happened in the last 5 years is like things that happen in other countries. Like, I never in a million years thought we'd get to this place where there's so much tribalism, and then now it's culminating in assassination, culminating in more calls for violence.
And normally Americans would be like, hell no, it stops here. We fought against this shit in other countries. And it's like, why the hell are these people thinking it's okay now? It's okay here. It's not okay here.
Well, they're going to find out how not okay, but I am worried about the monkey's paw effect, which is, because I could conceive it, and I said on Twitter, and people think I'm crazy. I'm not crazy. We're ahead of the curve, guys. There is a hearing on October 8th, I believe it is. They're going to have the CEOs of Twitch, Discord, Reddit, and Steam. Gabe's going to be there, and they're going to testify before Congress about basically streaming and speech, and what they allow and don't allow on their platform. I could conceivably see these boomers, because I watched the Facebook hearing, I watched the TikTok hearing. I could see these boomers walking away from the situation being like, yeah, streamers are basically broadcasters, so we need to hold them to the same standards that we hold broadcasters to. So they're going to have to, run everything through the FCC, and we're going to have oversight over streamers. If you're going to live stream, you got to play nice with the FCC. And that opens up Pandora's box. That means that a private citizen isn't going to be able to stream without government oversight. And then we're talking like pirate radio, like this whole thing going, and I mean, I worked in radio. China. Yeah. I mean, I worked in radio. I know the deal. Because really, some of these streamers reach more people. Some of these podcasters and streamers reach more people than television network or radio broadcast. You know what I'm saying? So I think their takeaway from this will be, because of people like Hassan and Destiny, their takeaway will be, oh yeah, these streamers are dangerous, so let's just clamp down on streaming too, because we need to make sure that everything that goes out in the airwaves is squeaky clean. And that does open up Pandora's box.
And the kicker is, I don't even know what the answer or the solution is.
I don't have an answer either.
I don't know. I mean, everybody needs to calm the fuck down. I know that. Yeah.
Just be normal.
and in the middle, which I think most of us, I think a good solid 75-80% of America is in the middle. We're all like, what the hell is going on? We're just, can we just go back to American values? Can we just go back to, we believe in freedom of speech. However, there are limits.
Yeah.
We got freedom of speech, but we want, it's funny now, because honesty in reporting is something people keep wanting. You were telling me today that there's a lot of people who trust Fox News more than other networks. Probably because, when that girl got stabbed on the bus, they covered it, other news networks didn't. I think news networks need to go back to just telling the fucking truth. Not the truth with that, only the ones that will, the cherry pick truth that will, help their, who they have allegiance to. But the truth, because at the end of the day, your allegiance should be to the people that are watching you. The allegiance should be to the truth. And it doesn't help either that you have audiences that are about confirmation bias too. I think as audiences, we need to learn to go back to listening to things and hearing things we don't even want to hear, but it's the truth, instead of only being fed a diet of what we want to hear. Because when you're constantly fed a diet of what you want to hear, the truth is always a lie. And that's a problem. That is a huge, huge problem.
Again, it's money. It's all about money. It's all about advertising dollars, views. Because if you're going to say things that are unpopular with your base, you're going to take a hit in views. I mean, we would have grown a hell of a lot faster if we leaned into every talking point. And there are some topics we just avoided altogether because either we didn't know enough about it or we're like, it's kind of a minor.
Well, hell, I know I'm going to get in trouble from people. I'm just going to flat out say it because I said I didn't think that he should have been completely canceled over this. Because I'm sorry, I think what he said was shit, and I think he should be called out on it 100%. But do I think that it warranted this? No. Do I think what happened to Gina Carano was okay? No.
No.
And I'm like, if you think one's okay and one's not, then that's a problem. I think everything you treat evenly. Now, to be fair, Gina Carano, what she said was nowhere near as bad. She was actually calling for people to go back to, loving your neighbor, and that got her canceled. Well, and I think that's a load of shit.
Ironically, and all of this, I think you want to know how far the pendulum swung. I mean, now, we have Vance out there telling people to call, OSHA on, coworkers and make them feel unsafe. We have people, tagging in and narking on people because they feel unsafe. And that's the thing. Like, all of this is basically because of the Charlie Kirk situation. Yes, everybody feels unsafe and they're going to do stuff that maybe they wouldn't have done.
But the problem is how did we get here? We got here because we had years of the other side doing that. Just because you used the wrong pronoun by accident, I feel unsafe and you're fired. This is why we got to this point. You have to understand it's not just, this now.
No,
it's all of a sudden led up to it.
Yeah.
And I mean, this whole chunk of time is just, it's like everybody jokes with the bad timeline. The halogen collider, that the incident happened. We got thrown into the bad timeline. Whatever. Yeah.
I've heard Harambe. I've heard.
It's like we're in the bad time because it's bizarro world. And the thing is, it's like they're mad about this little bit of time now because they're like, well, I feel unsafe with my coworkers, but the reason that it got to this point is because you made them feel, they couldn't say anything or they walked on eggshells and microaggressions for years to get them to a point where they're fine. And it's basically everything Gina Carano said.
Yeah.
It's everything she said. You have all made it come to pass. And it's like, listen, can we just go back to being rational individuals and knowing that, even like down to the statement they were mad about Sinclair saying, well, you should issue an apology to Kirk's family, which I think was just, standard. You should issue an apology after that. But that you should donate personally to his family and to Turning Point USA. And they're mad because they're like, why? How could you dictate that? And I'm like, well, I remember when George Floyd happened. Yes. And the summer of riots, protests. And during that time frame, if you questioned anything, if you pointed out, his criminal background or anything that, you better apologize and you better make reparations. And every company had to donate money to Black Lives Matter. And you know what happened with that money? We already know, there was all kinds of questionable things around that. You had to do it because you had to do if you didn't, then you're going to be singled out because you had to give them money as a show of support. And I'm like, but now they're mad about them saying that towards Kimmel. But I'm like, Kimmel and them would probably have been the ones, telling everybody to show support before. You know what I mean?
Well,
you set the guidelines, you set the baseline, and now you're mad when the other side does the same thing back to you. And it's like you said about making the rule about writing your name 100 times on the chalkboard if you did something bad. It's like you set that rule. You were the one who decided. Now, do I think that's going too far? Hell yeah. Do I think that if the rule was bad to begin with, continuing the rule isn't going to make it any better? Yes. But I also completely understand, and I get completely why people want to hold them accountable to the same rules that they held. It's tyranny, it's like reverse tyranny. It's like, I don't want to say tyranny, but you know what I mean? Like the demands were so ridiculous for years, and everybody felt like they couldn't breathe. And now, the people that were demanding this stuff are mad because they're getting a little bit of the taste of their own medicine.
This feels like, we've got two polarized sides. It feels like mutually assured destruction.
Yes, that's exactly
it's
what
like
it feels
basically
like.
It's like, okay, well, if you do this, we're going to do this. And if you do this, we're going to do this. So basically everybody chill the fuck out, or, depending
and everybody
on who's
in the middle is just like, what the fuck's going on?
Yeah, that's the thing. But yeah, I think at the end of it, that he basically, it's the money, and you're saying about.
I think it is the money. I do think.
Yeah, you said about donating to the cause or whatever, and I'm sitting here thinking, like, I remember how many people, if you said anything that was even misconstrued as being anti-trans. Like, you have to donate to the Trevor Project to make amends, and we have to see a receipt.
Yes, and
apologize.
They did this for years, and so now that they're demanding the exact same thing, and I'm sure part of it is probably like, well, hey, turnabout's fair play.
Well, that's where I'm torn on this, because part of me is like, these are the rules that you guys created. Basically, you're being held to your own standards, but I'm also like, this is also a slippery slope. It was a slippery slope when you did it, and if this shit doesn't calm down, somebody's going to come in that's going to have bad intentions, and they're going to take advantage of the government having more and more oversight over.
And that's what's going to ultimately happen. But what the slippery slope thing, and it's like, and I completely understand why people are so over it. But it's like, if you've been abused for years, if you're given the opportunity to confront your abuser, you're going to beat the living shit out of them.
Jamie's got a gun.
And I get it. I completely understand it. Like, I get why people are upset and they want to give it back the same. And the thing is, they've been turning the other cheek, and the other side's learned nothing. And we need to stop any form of extremism's the problem. And we need to hold the people that are, in media more accountable. And things like that. But I'm also like where you are, it's a slippery slope.
It feels good now. I'm just worried. I'm worried. Again, we have a bunch of boomers dealing with tech, and I'm like, I have my gut is telling me that we're going to get some people that fundamentally do not understand, some Pam Bondi types who do not understand how the internet works. And it's going to mean a clampdown on everything, all speech.
And then we're talking China. And that's what I'm worried about. I'm worried that the answer they're going to come up with is going to be even worse than what we had before. And that's very scary. But as far as him getting the show getting canceled, again, I honestly think it comes down to he wasn't bringing it. They don't want to deal with the headaches. It's easier to just take it off the air and not deal with it, and then be done with it. If Disney decides to keep the show going, they can air it in Disney Plus. They can air other places. They don't have to run it on ABC. They can run it on YouTube or something. So I mean, they can still do that, but they're not. They're choosing to put it indefinitely in hiatus, probably waiting for it to blow over.
Yeah.
But they're not outright saying we're not doing it anymore, but there are ways they can still get it out in the air. They're just not doing that either. But I think it's just because it's not worth it.
Yeah, pretty much. And I think it's going to end with all these guys just winding up being podcasters or something, with the plebs. So we're going to wrap this up.
Yes.
Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. We'll talk later.
Bye.
For more pop culture news, views, and rants, go to news.clownfishtv.com. That's news.clownfishtv.com.